Next item.
Bill 231, Draft 2, adopts a pay plan for persons employed by the county other than those whose pay is otherwise provided for, designates payroll periods, pay days, prescribes requirements with respect to official fidelity bonds, and repeals ordinance number 13-50 and all amendments thereto. Said ordinance to be known as the Salary Ordinance of 2014. This measure also covers other matters relating to the compensation and temporary employment of county employees. Reference Communication 783.2, introduced by Ms. Poindexter, approved FC 159, postponed May 1, 2014. Note there is a pending motion by Ms. Poindexter and duly seconded by Ms. Ford to approve Bill 231, Draft 2, and Communication 783.8 from Councilmember Valerie T. Poindexter dated May 1, 2014, transmitting the proposed amendments to Bill 231, Draft 2.
Okay, so there's a pending motion. The bill is live on the floor. Ms. Poindexter, would you like the floor first?
Yes, please. I'd like to make a motion to amend Bill 231, Draft 2, with the contents of communication number 783.10. And, thank you. So, this is just, if we remember the last meeting in Kona, we talked about including Margaret's amendments and into my amendments and just making just one communication. So that's what I did. It's completed, and thanks to the help with, Councilmember Ford's office and Lorraine also. So this is any concerns or questions I'd like to yield at this time and hear from other council members.
Okay, any further discussion on the amendment, Ms. Ford?
I believe that we voted on the SA position the last time and added a fourth step, which was not included in this communication. So I would like to further amend.
Ms. Ford, can
Yes.
you hold on one second?
Certainly.
Recess. Okay, we're going to call the meeting back to order. Staff has just clarified that communication 783.8 is actually live on the floor, Ms. Ford. So I apologize for the interruption, but Ms. Poindexter, that is your communication as well. So what did you want to do with that?
Well, I was going to withdraw that communication and,
Replace it
I'm
with-
sorry, I'm going to withdraw that communication.
Okay.
And,
Name it. Name the
okay,
number.
I'm withdrawing communication 783.8.
Okay, so noted.
And I would like to make a motion to amend Bill 231, Draft 2, with the contents of communication number 783.10.
Okay, so now we're good. Seconded by Mr. Kern, and then now Ms. Ford has the floor. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Your light. Thank you. I would like to further amend communication 783.10 with the contents of communication 783.12. At the last meeting, we had a discussion.
You would need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll need a second.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Kern did it, okay.
One of the things, let me just go down the list of the things that I want to change. On the AD, we didn't change the salaries.
Ms. Ford, I'm so sorry.
I yield.
No, staff has indicated to me that we cannot amend a communication with another communication. We need to dispose of it first and then do the further amendment. Okay, so Ms. Ford, we'll take yours up as soon as we complete Ms. Poindexter's amendment. Okay, so we're still on 783.10. Any further discussion on that amendment? Ms. Willie?
Yes, I just want to lend my support that this does incorporate what I had and that it's, anyway, that's all. Clarify that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, Mr. Ilagana?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to say the same.
Alrighty, anything else? If not, all those in favor of amending with communication 783.10, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, Ms. Ford, you're up.
Are you sure? Are you really sure this time?
What? Tell me. Okay, recess. Alrighty, can we call the meeting back to order? Okay, so Ms. Ford, staff has brought to our attention some concern about your communication amending 783.10. So as I see it, Ms. Ford, and you let me know how you want to proceed. As I see it, your communication would replace 783.10. So your 12 would replace 10. That's your intention, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is my
So
intention.
the concern was that
May I comment?
yeah, go ahead.
The reason I want to replace it is because the discussion we had on the SA1 position, that we at least concurred with, to add a four-step, did not get included, despite the fact that our staffs were talking to each other to do that. It didn't happen.
Okay.
Can I comment?
Yes.
The reason why that was not included, I did check with council services, and it was not motioned in, or there's nothing on the record that stated that. So that's why I couldn't include it in what we agreed to, because my recollection was what I had prepared was what all of the council members discussed and agreed to. So the SA1 was not part of that. And according, and I double-checked with council services, and it wasn't motioned in. So it wasn't officially discussed. So, but what I put in my amendment was officially discussed with Margaret and my amendment. So that's why I needed to check that, and I checked with council services. So the changes that I did in mines that you want to now change was what we had all agreed to on the last meeting.
Okay, so let's hear from Ms. Ford. You want to respond? Go ahead.
Yeah. We had quite a discussion on the SA1 the last time and determined that we did want to have a four-step, and maybe my brain is checked out, but I remember that we voted. That's just what I remember, that we had a vote on this. So whether we did or not, I want to get it fixed now. And so I want to change this. I don't want to have to wait 2 more weeks and 2 more weeks and 2 more weeks. I'd like to get this all resolved today. And if I need to move to suspend the rules and allow us to change the amendment we just passed and get it corrected with the things I'd like to see, then I can do that. I just want to get it done.
Okay. Ms. Willie.
Yes, I don't believe it was in the sort of package that we all agreed to. That doesn't mean I'm not open to hearing and considering it, but my recollection was the same as Ms. Poindexter's. We basically went with hers, and then I asked that CA1 be eliminated, and she said yes, she would include that. So That doesn't mean I'm not open to listening to it, but I don't believe it was what we agreed to include last time.
Okay, so yeah, we can move forward. It doesn't really matter what happened last time because we can, do things today, if we want to. So, okay, so we are on Ms. Ford's amendment, but let me, just to make sure we're on solid footing, procedurally, Mr. Hendricks, did you want to come forward? Council members, I just want to make sure that procedurally we're doing everything okay in terms of making the amendments. Mr. Hendricks, do you have any concerns you want to?
John Hendricks, Legislative Research Branch. It's just that when I look at the two communications referencing point 10 and point 12, they overlap in so many different areas. And that 10 was just approved, I would be concerned as the council is aware of what changes it's making if it were to approve 12, because they do touch on so many of the same areas. So, let's say you did that, you made the motion, it was approved. I wouldn't exactly know what a draft 3 would look like, because your amendments are based upon what draft 2, its form and content. We don't have draft 2 anymore. We have draft 2 as amended.
Yep.
So if there were all different areas, if it was doing something that was unique that wasn't included in .10, we could reasonably ascertain that everything that was done in .10 is meant to stay intact, and these are further amendments, thus creating, another layer of draft. But I wouldn't know how to interpret that to create a draft 3, and basing upon what the council's understanding was. And of course, we couldn't ask later individually, well, what did you think that meant?
Right.
Yeah, so that's the greater concern at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. You can sit right there. So, council members, normally when we do amendments, we work off the previous draft. So, what's being explained to us is that usually what happens is Ms. Ford's amendment would actually have amended draft 3, but because we have the amendments all pending today, it didn't have the opportunity to do that because she didn't know if draft 3 was going to actually occur, right? Or pass, right? So she can't, plan on something that, she doesn't know what's going to happen. So what we have before us now is her point 12. So as I see it, this would replace everything. So this would be the draft 4 in its entirety. Ms. Ford, is that your intention? Or no?
I'm willing to bifurcate my amendment to make sure that things are exactly the way we want them, and we can go over them point by point if you need to.
Okay, so we can either do that, or you want to work off of draft 3 to table this, or you want to just go point by point. I mean, it's just so long as we know what we're...
That's why I think if we bifurcate, then I'll only be touching on those things that I truly want to change.
Okay. Well, let's hear from other council members. Mr. Kern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, looking at what we just passed in there and then what Ms. Ford's is, there is some differences in here that I'm not necessarily comfortable with that seem to be different. I don't have a problem with the SA1 change. I know there was some discussion, I forget exactly how we left that, but I don't have a problem with that. Some of these other things where it basically has the first term, second term, third term, etc. That wasn't really what we had discussed. So,
point of order. Because my amendment is not on the floor yet.
It is?
It is on the floor.
It is?
I seconded it.
You seconded? Okay. All right. I haven't had a chance to even explain this, so.
Right. Okay, we're just going for procedural concerns. Mr. Kern, you still have the floor.
Well, that's fine. I'll give Ms. Ford a chance to explain it, but I would either be more comfortable to bifurcate or just vote on I would be okay with the SA1.
Okay. Thank you. We're on the procedure part. Mr. Onishi, go ahead.
Listening to what Mr. Hendricks said, the only part I can see that's the same as 10 and 12 is where they crossed out CA2. Because if you look at CA1, in 12, if you look at CA1A, it's $33,088. If you look at 10, it's $33,096.
Yeah. So let's.
So basically, this with the two different amendments, it's basically just the CA2 that's, everything's the same.
So why don't,
Other than that, everything else is all different.
okay, so why don't we bifurcate it then and just take it one by one? and then-
I have a question.
Go
for
ahead, go ahead.
Okay, would it be more appropriate that at the next council meeting, that once that mine is completed and we have the official draft 3, then her amendment would come? It just seems a lot cleaner that way. If she wants to make an amendment to that bill and draft 3 and make another bill to that, what would you see as the proper process? Because it's, to me, the reason why I agreed to do it this way is to keep things simple and to go ahead and work with HR later to come up with a salary administrative plan of some type where there is a process, because we are not the experts here. We don't have the credentials to be looking at this kind of stuff and making it more of a mess. I was just trying to simply try to put a method to the madness for a little bit and then work with HR. But now, by trying to do a communication on top of a communication that has been passed, it seems like we keep on putting a mess on top of a mess. So what would you see as the proper process?
I would prefer not to designate what is appropriate. Maybe their options are before you, and that is one of them that you mentioned. Another option is to go through Ms. Ford's amendments, but the difficult part about that is you have to make it painstakingly clear orally what you're voting on, and there needs to be awareness, which can't be guaranteed from each council member, as to what each motion is and what the result will be, which then it could be said it's preferable to do it in a different manner. There are the differences that I noticed in the documents that were, where there seemed to be a contrast in philosophy, especially, is the portion at the end of the subsection B, which basically grants the council chairperson the authority to appoint to positions. What Ms. Poindexter's amendment was adding 2 new sentences, and then Ms. Ford's takes a completely different direction, with a chart and almost a progression for 2 particular positions. So that definitely is a contrast in philosophies. So,
Okay,
which is not to say one is correct or the other isn't, but there's that difference as
Okay.
well that has just been discussed.
So I still have the floor in the process. So I don't feel comfortable doing this because there may be unintended votes made or confusion that will cause more difficulty. I think the cleanest way is to have this redone as her to propose, or Councilmember Ford to propose this after this takes place, as the bill becomes now draft 3. Am I correct? That's one way to do it, you were saying.
That's an option.
Yes, and I think that's the cleanest option, because I don't think we have, it's so messy the way, if we're going to continue the way we're continuing right now, it's very messy. That is too messy. I don't know why would we even allow that, but that's my opinion, and I would like to hear from others.
Okay, well, why don't we let Ms. Ford explain her amendment, because she hasn't had the opportunity to do that. We were just trying to get through the procedural part, but I think, yeah,
I think Gregor wants to talk about procedural.
yeah, but what I'm hearing is that if she has an opportunity to say what her intent is, maybe that'll help us decide what the proper procedure is. Is that a fair?
Yes.
Okay.
All I want to, can I make just one fast comment?
Fast one,
Okay.
go ahead.
We can, which is already in, right? It got introduced, and we can just vote on it, and you can go to up or down.
Well, that's,
Right.
and that's, I think, what she wants to do.
Yeah,
So
if the
let's,
majority feels we should just not
yeah.
approve it, then we just vote it down and we move on.
Okay, so Mr. Liga, we'll come back to you, but I'm going to let her explain.
By the council member, The council chairperson shall review and may approve the appointment of step movement. Now, that was Ms. Willie's concern, that the may approve. The reason is, it'd be great if I put everybody at the top, but we didn't have the budget for it. That's why the that's what his job, his or her job would be, is to make sure that the budget is there. And then, of course, in the middle of the page, the council aide to the chairperson of the CA2, we agreed in discussion that we'd like to see that go. So there's nothing monumental in this. I like what Ms. Poindexter did on hers, but I think the SA1 needs to be put in there as a 4-step. I prefer doing as she said and having a method to the madness and have this steps positions in this manner. So at this time, I'll answer any questions.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Poindexter?
Yeah. I want to clear up what I said, the method to the madness. The entire process right now, there is no method. We keep fooling with this and keep doing it without the guidance of our Human Resources Department. And if any of you have had any background in human resources, a salary administrative plan takes a lot of work, and a lot of detail goes into a salary administrative plan to deal with the process. And the council, unfortunately, has the authority to mess with that salary administrative plan because it's our choice to do it. So we're creating a mess without having the appropriate people at the table, which is our HR administrative people, to be able to talk about a process and how they can help us design a better salary administrative plan. What I did, it was to touch on the method of the madness, just to start on it. We keep messing with this without HR. I'm very uncomfortable with that. So I'm not supporting the way we're keep on doing this without the expertise of our HR department, because we are not experts at this. None of us know what it takes. Well, I kind of know what it takes because I did a salary administrative plan, and it takes a while, and it's a long, detailed process. But there's a process to it, and there's a reason, there's a logic. What we're doing is we're jumping in and doing all kinds of things and creating a plan that is kind of messed up. We need to rely on our HR department to help guide us through a process. We need to finish this, not at this time. It takes time to sit down with them and develop that. So I'm saying that give it some time. Let's stop doing things to this and keep messing it up without their guidance. We need HR involved with this. So I'm voting for this communication. Thank you. Aloha.
Okay, let's see. We didn't hear from Ms. Eoff. Let's ask Ms. Eoff to go, then Mr. Kern. Ms. Willie, do you want to speak too after?
Wait till after.
Okay, so Ms. Eoff, you're next.
Yeah, I also remember at the last meeting that there was a reason why we didn't want to start changing the steps. We discussed that, and I think HR explained to us, or someone did, about the problems that would create in this time. So I would suggest that if we could just add, if we did forget to add the step for the SA1 position, the D, we could amend now Ms. Poindexter's communication, or the just to add that one item, if that was the will of the council at this time, rather than than trying to deal with this whole communication.
Okay.
But I really don't remember right now the discussion we had about the SA1 step. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Eoff. Mr. Kern?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, after hearing further discussion from my council members, it did come down to that we have to do a salary ordinance. There's so much that we can do to kind of tighten things up, to make some improvements, which we had talked about at the last meeting, which this has come through to do. I think it probably just makes sense to vote on this as it is, creating less paperwork. And if we wanted to, subsequently, anybody could introduce an amendment for an SA1 or anything else, but it would just be, we would get our work done that we need to, and it wouldn't complicate HR at this time, which is why we weren't changing the alphanumeric coding and all of that stuff, was just to kind of keep it simple. So I feel comfortable with that, and like I say, with anything else, SA1, etc., we could bring in and amend it later. So I yield.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kerr. Ms. Willie?
Yeah, I think it's probably easier to go ahead, as Councilmember Kern said. There are some things in Brenda's amendment that I would be supportive of, but I think rather than going through and bifurcating, I would rather do it in let's get this done. I would be happy to be supportive of Brenda bringing the further amendment. So I agree with Councilmember Kern to let's get this step. I would say, with regard to human resources, I feel like they really should be here more. In many ways, I feel that we're sort of put in the position of dealing with this and taking little nicks and chinks and seeing things that are clearly wrong, whereas it would be great to do some kind of overall audit on what positions are doing what, not SA. The public doesn't know, well, what's an SA1 and what's a da-da-da-da, and I think it's hard to follow. I do just want to support what Ms. Eoff said, is that HR did say, please don't change the letters and numbers now, that it would get into doing a lot of paperwork before the end of the term. So, again, I'm going to support Mr. Kern, but I encourage Ms. Ford to bring forward, perhaps in a more piecemeal, separately, whatever way she wants, for further discussion.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Willie. Mr. Onishi?
I look at what Ms. Ford had proposed, and the changes are not that much difference from what we have here. And then, and I see what she's trying to do with correcting the lettering, which is great, and that's what I mentioned at the last meeting too. But, I guess, it's hard to understand why HR would be saying it's going to be, very difficult or confusing to just change the letters.
Can I?
No, well, that's what but okay, no, you can, okay, Ms.
Do you want to
Poindexter.
hear from her? Okay,
Yeah.
Ms. Poindexter.
Because that's what I just heard right here.
Because at the last meeting, when I talked and when HR confirmed that
Right.
we had a meeting, because
Right.
I went over there to meet with them, and the problem with changing the letters at this short time when our terms are almost up is they would have to go back and change everybody's paperwork, right, in a short time, when they're going to have to do it come the new term again anyway. So just before that new term comes in, if we want to do that, to do the change of the lettering, that can be done at that time.
Okay.
Then we're not causing so much, time is money for them also, yeah, because how much paperwork is going to have to be done? Because now the people who are listed as D become A.
Right,
So
correct.
you got to go back and change
No,
all.
yeah,
So
that's true.
that was a reason, was to save, because I initially wanted to do that also. But because I met with HR and looked
Okay,
at
and then
the overall process.
okay, so how long would they need to do this process to change it?
Well, it would be more logical for us to do it sometime in November to make it effective when that time changes, when the new people come on board,
Okay.
getting rid of A, B, C, D.
Okay,
So it's time. It's about
okay,
time and
okay,
money.
yeah, no, I understand. So so if Ms. Ford can introduce this like in November, then everything should be okay.
Yeah, and I would say, I'm not HR at this point.
No, but what they told you is
Right,
that
From what I understand is that that's the reason why, and I agree with them. I do agree with them because it doesn't only affect HR, you got to do the whole peer. I mean, there's a lot of departments that are affected by this. So all I would say is I would encourage whoever's going to do something or bring something forward to meet with our HR department and take their guidance.
Okay, Mr. Onishi, you still have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And, well, you know, I like this because it does correct what we were talking about, and I agree. In SA1, it was only 3 steps, so that's good. We have the 4th step, and then I also like the part about the terms, that the pay grade is going to follow as first term, second term, 4th term, and that I think will really make things more under control on the pay raises. Yeah, but if HR is saying that they need time, or the best time to do these amendments is like in November, then Ms. Ford, maybe something to think about, because I wouldn't want this to be voted down, because then we cannot bring them back until the next new council, right? So I really like this, and so something to think about. Thank you.
Okay, let's...
Can I follow up?
Wait, let me ask Ms. Ford if she wanted to comment, because...
I appreciate Mr. Onishi's comments, and I am going to take this under consideration. But Ms. Willie did want to speak, and I'd like to hear what she has
Okay,
to say.
Ms. Willie, go ahead.
I guess I was really thinking along the lines of what John Hendricks said, is sort of dealing with this one, Ms. Ford's number 10 today, and bringing the next meeting. I have no problem moving forward. I would like HR to be here and deal with some of these things, and just I wasn't trying to put this off, and I think some of these changes could be made right now. They don't need to wait for November. I don't know how long Brenda's going to be around, or when this is going to come up.
December 1st, 12 noon, it's adios.
Okay, I know the adios bit, but so if this is going to be put off indefinitely, then I would, in a way, rather just deal with some of it right now. I mean, I feel HR sometimes is not here for us. I mean, they certainly weren't here explaining what was happening to our health packages when we voted on somebody else's raises. So anyway, I don't like the idea of putting it off indefinitely. I'd rather be dealing with these things that we've thought about now and we're discussing. So I would appreciate that if we go with a number 10 for right now, that Ms. Ford bring it up in the immediate future and just go through it and get it done.
Okay, here's a suggestion then. Suggestion is, Ms. Ford, if you're willing, you can withdraw the amendment. You can bring it forward at the next meeting. We'll ask staff to contact HR to make sure they're here for the second reading. That way, you're not precluded from bringing this up again. But it's up to you how you want to proceed. That's the suggestion anyway. Because otherwise, because we don't want to postpone it, because we're still on first reading. We need to get this passed, right? So that's the rationale behind that. Okay. So Ms. Willie, Ms. Ford, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, we have actually we have 3 different options here. I can withdraw this. I'll just let the one go through that's gone through, even though the SA1 position does not have a 4th step, and there are people who've served in that position and haven't had a raise in a very long time, but I guess that's immaterial at this moment. I could do as Mr. Hendricks suggested and wait till he finishes draft 3 and then make an amendment against it, but I'm going to be basically making this exact same amendment if I did it that way. And I will still have the same objections from the same people doing it at that time, 2 weeks from now, which is even a shorter period of time for HR to work on this. Or we can do what was suggested by Ms. Poindexter and wait until the end of the term and deal with it. But the only department that's going to be affected by this is this department, which which is the legislative branch. That means whatever employees fall into these categories, so there's probably less than 20 employees. And it needs to be done well before the new term starts. I don't know if November, if we're worried about it right now when we've got 6 weeks left in this year, this fiscal year, you're going to wait till November. It won't even get passed by an introduction in November, and so the new council won't have it done appropriately, whatever that means. It won't be done in a timely manner for the new council coming in and for their staff. So, what I'm hearing is there might be one thing that could pass, there might be some other things that people like, and I'm hearing absolutely no consensus on how this council wants to go forward. So I withdraw, and you guys can all work it out yourselves. Communication 783.12. Thank you.
Okay. So we are back to Bill 231, Draft 3, as amended. Any further discussion? If not, we're going to just vote on moving this forward to second reading as amended with 783.10. Any questions on what we're doing as far as what we're voting on? Hearing none? Okay, any further discussion? Not? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay.